People always say, family never hurts you. That's a lie. Sometimes, the people you raise with love turn into strangers overnight. My name is Margaret, I'm 72 years old, and this is the story of how my only son, the boy I once carried in my arms, decided to throw me away like I was nothing. But he forgot one small detail: I'm not as helpless as I look. My husband, David, passed away 2 years ago. He left behind a beautiful old mansion, a house we'd worked for our entire lives. Every corner of it had a memory. The front porch where we had coffee every morning. The big oak tree where my son, Ethan, used to play with his dog. The fireplace we sat by every Christmas. It was more than just bricks and mortar. It was a living scrapbook of our life together, a testament to decades of shared dreams and quiet joys. The scent of David's pipe tobacco still seemed to linger faintly in his study, and I often found myself tracing the patterns on the wallpaper in the dining room, remembering all the boisterous family dinners we'd hosted there. Every creak of the old wooden floors, every ray of sunlight filtering through the stained glass window on the landing, held a story. It was my sanctuary, my legacy, and the last tangible piece of David I had left. After my husband's death, Ethan moved back in. He said it was to take care of me. He painted it as a loving gesture, a devoted son returning to his grieving mother. At first, I was grateful, even relieved. The house felt so empty without David, and Ethan's presence, with his youthful energy and quick wit, seemed to fill some of the silence. He would bring me my morning tea, help me with the grocery shopping, and even sit with me in the evenings, watching old movies. I thought for a brief time that perhaps this was a new chapter, one where we could lean on each other and find comfort in our shared loss. But slowly, it felt like he wasn't taking care of me, he was taking over. The subtle shifts began almost imperceptibly, like the slow creep of ivy up a wall. He started making suggestions, then requests, then demands. His tone, once gentle, became tinged with an edge of authority. He changed the locks, without asking. He just presented me with a new set of keys one afternoon, explaining that the old ones were worn out and he was just trying to keep us safe. It felt like a small thing then, a trivial change, but looking back, it was the first brick in the wall he was building around me. Then, he started managing the bills. He'd intercept the mail, open my bank statements, and tell me not to worry about them, that he had it all under control. He even told the gardener not to listen to my instructions anymore. "Mom gets confused," he'd say with a dismissive wave of his hand, as if I wasn't standing right there, perfectly capable of deciding whether I wanted hydrangeas or roses. My voice, once the undisputed command in my own home, was slowly being silenced, replaced by his. At first, I thought he was just being protective, a worried son looking out for his elderly mother. That's what I told myself, trying to soothe the growing unease in my gut. I tried to rationalize his behavior to fit it into the narrative of a loving family. But one evening, I overheard him on the phone. I was heading to the kitchen for a glass of water, my steps softened by the thick Persian rug in the hallway. The door to his study was slightly ajar, and I heard his voice, low and conspiratorial. He said, "Once the old woman signs the papers, we can sell the property fast. It's worth millions. She won't even know what hit her." There was a cold, calculating edge to his voice I'd never heard before, a chilling lack of emotion. My heart froze. The glass slipped from my hand, shattering silently on the carpet, though I barely registered the sound. The old woman he was talking about was me. The words echoed in my head, a horrifying realization that twisted my perception of everything. It wasn't about care, it was about greed. It wasn't protection, it was a plot. The son I loved, the boy I'd nurtured, was seeing me not as his mother, but as an obstacle, a means to an end. I wanted to confront him right then, to burst into that room and demand answers, to shake him and ask how he could betray me like this. But I didn't. A lifetime of knowing Ethan, of understanding the intricate workings of his charming yet manipulative personality, held me back. I knew Ethan. He had his father's charm, but none of his heart. If I fought him directly, he'd twist it all against me. He'd play the dutiful son, portray me as senile, confused, and prone to delusions. He'd turn my anger into proof of my supposed mental decline. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I pretended to be weak. I swallowed my pride, my hurt, my outrage, and adopted a new persona. I started acting forgetful. I'd misplace my glasses right after putting them on my head, ask the same question twice in a conversation, or pretend to struggle with simple tasks around the house. I'd ramble about old memories, often repeating myself, and gaze blankly when he discussed financial matters. letting him believe I was losing my mind. I played the part so well that even his wife, Clara, began treating me like a burden. Her smiles became patronizing, her voice overly sweet, as if talking to a child. They started whispering about assisted living, code for a nursing home. I heard them discussing how it would be for my own good, how I'd be safer there. Each whispered word, each feigned concern was a dagger to my heart, but I endured it. I had to. That's when I decided I needed proof that I wasn't crazy, proof that my son was planning to take everything from me. I needed undeniable, irrefutable evidence that would stand up in court, something that couldn't be twisted or dismissed. My mind, far from failing, was sharper than ever, fueled by a fierce determination to protect myself and David's legacy. So I had cameras installed. Quietly, I called a trusted handyman, a man who had worked for us for decades and who knew how to keep a secret. I explained vaguely that I was concerned about security after David's passing and wanted a comprehensive system. He understood without needing to pry. We went over the blueprints of the house, carefully selecting strategic points. Every hallway, every room, even the basement. Tiny, discreet lenses, barely noticeable, were seamlessly integrated into light fixtures, smoke detectors, and even decorative moldings. They were connected to a system that streamed footage directly to a secure, off-site cloud server, managed by my lawyer, Mr. Green. I wanted to make sure that even if Ethan somehow found and disabled the local recording device, the evidence would already be safe. I didn't tell a soul, not Mr. Green, about my true suspicions, only about the security concerns. Not my few remaining friends who would only worry. This was my battle, and I would fight it with silence and cunning. At first, the cameras showed small things, Ethan moving important documents from my drawer, papers that related to the house, to David's investments, things he had no business touching. I watched him on the hidden monitor, his face intent, as he rifled through my private belongings, a cold knot forming in my stomach. Then there was Clara, casually throwing away my medicines, claiming they were expired, even though I knew they weren't. It was a subtle act, easy to dismiss as a minor error, but combined with the other incidents, it painted a clearer picture of their intentions. The two of them would often be caught on camera laughing about how much my husband's watch would sell for, a cherished family heirloom that David had worn every day. Their callous disregard for things that held such deep meaning for me was truly heartbreaking. It showed me just how far they had descended into their greed, how little they cared for my feelings or my history. But one night, everything changed. It was raining heavily. I remember because the thunder was loud enough to shake the windows, rattling the very foundations of the old house. The sky outside was a furious canvas of black and gray, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. I was in the kitchen making tea, the comforting ritual a small anchor in the growing chaos of my life, when Ethan walked in looking angry. His face was a mask of irritation, his jaw clenched, and his eyes had a hard, unyielding glint. He didn't even bother with a greeting. "Mom, where's the property deed?" he demanded, his voice sharp and impatient, cutting through the quiet hum of the house. I looked at him calmly, despite the sudden surge of adrenaline. "It's safe with my lawyer, Ethan," I replied, trying to keep my voice even, though my heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I knew this was a critical moment, a test of wills. His face twisted like he'd bitten something sour, the mask of concern slipping entirely to reveal pure frustration. "You're losing it," he snapped, his words a venomous accusation. "I'm trying to help you, but you make it impossible." He took a step closer, his presence feeling suddenly menacing in the quiet kitchen. I met his gaze directly. "Ethan, your father and I worked for that house. You'll get it when it's your time." I tried to inject a note of maternal authority, a reminder of our shared past, of the respect he once showed. He slammed the table so hard the teacup I had just poured fell over, shattering on the tile floor, hot liquid spreading across the white surface like a wound. "Your time is up, Mom. You're not in charge anymore." His voice was cold, devoid of any warmth or affection. It was a declaration of war. He left, slamming the door behind him with such force that the house seemed to shudder. I sat there shaking, my hands trembling as I stared at the broken teacup, the steam rising from the spilled tea a hazy blur through my tears. The next morning, I woke up to find my bedroom door locked from the outside. Panic, cold and sharp, gripped me. This wasn't just about documents anymore, it was about my freedom, my safety. I called out for Ethan. My voice echoed in the silent house, swallowed by the thick walls. No answer. I tried calling his phone. It went straight to voicemail, a robotic voice informing me of his unavailability, a cruel mockery of my desperation. Hours passed. The silence was deafening, broken only by the frantic beat of my own heart. Then I heard footsteps, heavy and deliberate, on the floor above me, and Clara's voice, clear and chillingly casual. "She's old," Clara said, her tone devoid of empathy, punctuated by a light, dismissive laugh. "She won't last long down there. Let's just move her stuff out before anyone notices." That's when it hit me. I wasn't just locked in my room. I was locked in the basement. The realization was a punch to the gut. The basement. A cold, damp, forgotten space, rarely used since David passed. My mind raced, trying to process the horrifying reality. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate act of cruelty. I shouted until my throat burned, my voice growing hoarse with each desperate plea. I banged on the door until my hands hurt, the wood resisting my feeble attempts to break free. Nothing. My cries went unanswered, swallowed by the thick silence of the house. They'd left food just enough to keep me alive. Dry crackers, a few cans of soup, water bottles. Not enough to thrive, just enough to survive. They planned everything. Every night I could hear them walking upstairs. Their footsteps, once comforting, now sounded like the heavy tread of captors. Laughing, talking about renovations. Discussions about new furniture, paint colors, plans for the money they assumed they would soon have. One evening, I heard Ethan's voice again, clearer this time, his words dripping with calculated malice. "She'll sign eventually. I'll say it's for medical consent. Once it's done, we can put her in a home and sell the place." His words were a roadmap of his betrayal, a chilling confirmation of their cold-blooded scheme. I sat there in the dark, with only the dim, bare bulb of the basement light flickering overhead, casting long, dancing shadows on the concrete walls. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and disuse. My body ached from the cold, but my mind was clearer than it had been in days. And I smiled, because I knew what he didn't. The cameras. Every single word, every threat, every lie, all of it was being recorded, uploaded automatically to my lawyer's cloud server. My quiet revenge was already in motion, unfolding silently in the digital ether. The evidence was being meticulously collected, time-stamped, and stored, a damning chronicle of their treachery. Each casual remark about my fragility, each cruel laugh at my expense, each dismissive comment about my future, it was all being captured. My lawyer, Mr. Green, a meticulous man of impeccable integrity, would be receiving these daily uploads, unaware of the full horror they contained, but archiving them nonetheless as per my security monitoring request. He would soon have an undeniable case, a mountain of proof against them. Days passed. Each one felt like an eternity, blurring into the next. The air in the basement grew cold and heavy, thick with dust and the oppressive weight of my confinement. My joints ached, and a persistent chill settled deep in my bones. I thought about my husband, David, his kind smile, his steady hand. I thought about our younger years, the dreams we built, the sacrifices we made for our family, for Ethan. And I thought about how the boy I'd once protected, shielded from every hurt and disappointment, was now my captor, my betrayer. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. But I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. On the fourth night, I heard Ethan say something that made my blood run cold, sparking a new fire in my chest, replacing the despair with a burning resolve. "If she doesn't sign by Friday, I'll just declare her mentally unstable. That'll make it legal." His voice was calm, utterly devoid of conscience. This wasn't just about money, it was about stripping me of my dignity, my autonomy, my very sanity in the eyes of the law. He intended to erase me, legally, formally. That was the moment I decided to fight back. No more waiting, no more playing the victim. I found an old metal rod near the boiler, a forgotten relic of some past repair, heavy and cold in my grasp. I started tapping it against the thick, iron pipes that ran along the basement ceiling. The sound echoed through the whole house, a resonant, metallic clang that was impossible to ignore. Over and over. Bangs, bangs, bang. A steady, irritating rhythm, designed to penetrate their blissful ignorance upstairs, to disrupt their casual conversations and shatter their peace. It drove them crazy. I could hear Clara shouting, her voice high-pitched and frayed, "Make her stop, I can't hear myself think." I smiled grimly in the darkness, a small victory. But Ethan didn't open the door. He just shouted back, "Let her tire herself out. She's crazy anyway. She'll stop when she's exhausted." Perfect. The more they underestimated me, the better. Let them think I was just a senile old woman making noise. Let them believe I was harmless, powerless. Their arrogance was my greatest weapon. While they were out the next day, I heard their car pull out of the driveway, a sound I had come to eagerly anticipate. I started on my next move. I dragged a heavy wooden crate beneath the small, grimy basement window. It was a struggle. My muscles protested and my breath hitched, but the thought of Ethan's smirk fueled my determination. I stood on it, reaching up, struggling to push the window open. The lock had rusted solid over the years, fused shut with grime and neglect. But I was persistent. I used a spoon from my food tray, a flimsy, plastic utensil, to pry it loose, scraping and twisting, my fingers aching. My hands were bleeding, small cuts appearing on my knuckles and palms, but I didn't stop. The pain was a distant echo compared to the burning desire for freedom. After what felt like an hour, my shoulder screaming in protest, I managed to push it open just enough to slip out a small note. I'd carefully torn a strip from a paper towel, and using the pen that had been left with my sparse food, I scribbled a desperate message. "Locked in basement. Call police. Margaret." I wrapped the note around the pen, making it heavier, more likely to be noticed. I tossed it with all my strength toward the neighbor's fence, hoping someone would find it. Hoping it wouldn't be lost in the weeds, hoping the rain wouldn't wash away my words. I didn't know if it worked. The uncertainty was agonizing. I returned to my corner, listening, waiting. But 2 days later, I heard police sirens. Faint at first, then growing louder, closer, until their wail filled the air directly outside the house. A wave of immense relief, so profound it almost buckled my knees, washed over me. When the officers broke down the front door, the sound of splintering wood echoing through the house, the first thing they found was Ethan arguing with them. He was standing in the foyer, arms crossed, trying to project an air of indignant innocence, pretending to be the victim. His voice was laced with false concern, a practiced performance of the worried son. "She's confused, officers. She thinks I locked her up. She's not well. She's been experiencing delusions since my father passed away," he insisted, his eyes wide and earnest, playing his part to perfection. Then the true cavalry arrived. My lawyer, Mr. Green, a man whose calm demeanor belied his sharp legal mind, walked in holding a tablet. He didn't say a word to Ethan, just gave him a cool, assessing look that spoke volumes. The officers, sensing something was gravely amiss, stepped aside. Mr. Green clicked a button, and the screen of his tablet lit up, displaying familiar footage. He played the footage. The room, moments ago filled with Ethan's indignant protests and the murmur of the officers, went utterly silent. The only sound was the clear, damning audio from the recordings. There was Ethan not helping me, but dragging me down the basement steps, my feeble struggles visible for all to see. His face, contorted in a sneer, flashed across the screen. There was Clara not tending to my needs, but laughing as she took my phone away, tossing it onto a pile of old newspapers. There were their words, clear as day, undeniable, etched into the digital record. The casual cruelty of their voices filled the room. "She'll sign it eventually. She's too old to understand anything." The color drained from Ethan's face. It was as if all the blood had suddenly left him, leaving him pale and ghost-like. His eyes darted nervously between the tablet screen and the police officers, a sudden dawning horror replacing his feigned innocence. He tried to snatch the tablet, his hand lunging out in a desperate, frantic attempt to silence the truth, but an officer, quick and firm, held him back, securing his arm in a grip that brooked no resistance. I'll never forget the moment their eyes met mine as the police opened the basement door. The dim light from the hallway spilled into my cold, dark prison, revealing me to them. I stood there, frail, trembling from the cold and the ordeal, but free. I wasn't the confused, old woman they had imagined. I was a witness, a survivor. Ethan, his voice cracking, said, "Mom, I didn't mean it. Please, Mom." The facade had completely crumbled, replaced by a desperate, panicked plea. I just looked at him, my gaze unwavering, holding all the hurt, the betrayal, and the cold, hard truth of what he had done. And I said, my voice hoarse but steady, "The cameras were on, Ethan. They've always been on. He started crying, genuine tears now, begging the officers to listen, to believe his suddenly frantic explanations, but it was too late. Clara, seeing the jig was up, tried to run, a desperate dash for the back door, but one of the officers, anticipating her move, stopped her with a firm hand on her arm. I was taken to the hospital. They checked me for bruises, for dehydration, for signs of neglect, for everything a woman in my condition after such an ordeal might suffer. They were thorough, kind, and professional. I stayed quiet the whole time, my mind still processing the shock, the relief, the profound sorrow of it all. I didn't need to say a word. The evidence spoke for me, a chorus of voices from the hidden cameras detailing every moment of their cruelty. 2 days later, the news spread everywhere. Like wildfire, it consumed every local news channel, every online forum. Elderly woman locked by her own son, caught on camera. The footage went viral. The clips of Ethan dragging me, of Clara laughing, of their callous words were played endlessly. People were furious. Outraged comments flooded social media, news sites, and even the local papers. Strangers started sending letters to the hospital, to Mr. Green's office, saying they wished their mothers were still alive so they could apologize, so they could tell them they loved them, so they could cherish the time they had. It was a strange, unexpected wave of communal empathy, born from the raw exposure of my personal suffering. Meanwhile, Ethan was charged with elder abuse, false imprisonment, and fraud. The wheels of justice, once slow and deliberate, turned swiftly under the weight of such undeniable evidence and public outcry. Clara, pragmatic and self-serving to the core, divorced him within weeks, abandoning him to face the consequences alone. She saw a sinking ship and was quick to jump. But poetic justice wasn't done yet, not entirely. Remember the property deed? The one Ethan was so desperate to get his hands on, the one he believed would make him rich. Because of his egregious actions, the court froze his accounts, every single penny he possessed, every asset he'd ever accumulated. And in a stunning twist of justice, they awarded me full legal ownership of everything. The house, the magnificent mansion he craved. The savings David and I had painstakingly built over a lifetime. Even his car, a sleek, expensive vehicle he'd been so proud of. The boy who once looked me in the eye and sneered, "You're not in charge anymore," now had nothing left. Absolutely nothing. I moved out of that mansion. The thought of staying there, of living within those walls that had witnessed such a profound betrayal, was unbearable. Too many bad memories clung to every corner, every shadow. It felt tainted, no longer a home but a monument to greed and deceit. Instead, after much thought and consultation with Mr. Green, I donated it to a women's shelter that helps older women who have been abandoned or abused by their families. Women like me, who have faced unthinkable hardships at the hands of those they loved. It was a way to reclaim the space, to cleanse it of its bitter past, and to infuse it with a new purpose. Every time I visit, I see women sitting in the garden, a beautiful, peaceful space that David himself had meticulously tended. They are laughing, drinking tea, sharing stories, finding solace and community with each other safe. It feels like that house, once a symbol of my heartbreak, finally found peace, found its true calling as a haven. It's no longer a place of betrayal, but a place of healing, of new beginnings. As for Ethan, he sends letters from time to time. They arrive at Mr. Green's office, always addressed to me. Apologies carefully crafted, pleas laced with self-pity and promises of change. Stories about how he's turned his life around, how he understands now, how he wants to make amends. I don't reply. Some wounds don't need words, they just need distance. A vast, unbridgeable chasm of distance. There's nothing left to say. You see, revenge isn't always about anger. It's not always about inflicting pain or seeking retribution in kind. Sometimes, it's about setting boundaries, about reclaiming your dignity, about finding justice through legal means. Sometimes, it's about letting people face the mirror they've been avoiding, forcing them to confront the true reflection of who they've become. It's about consequences, about the natural repercussions of their actions. He locked me in darkness, in a cold, forgotten basement, intending to bury me and my legacy. But I came out shining, illuminated by the truth. He tried to silence me, to make me a forgotten statistic, but I became the story everyone heard, a testament to resilience and quiet strength. If you're watching this and you've ever been made to feel small, invisible, or powerless, remember this. You don't need to scream to get justice. You don't need to shout to be heard. Sometimes all it takes is quiet strength, unwavering resolve, and a camera that never forgets. Watch the next story, it's even darker.